Hey guys, welcome back to the Lou Perez Podcast on the Lions of Liberty Podcast Network. I'm your host, Lou Perez, and I'm very happy to be rejoined by a good friend of mine. He's a filmmaker, thought maker, new dad, Mr. Sean Malone. So,
Hey Lou, how you doing, man?
good. Thank you for making thoughts. I just came up with that on the spot.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I am a thought maker. I feel like a lot of people are thought makers, so I'm not sure, exactly what that means in this context. But I do my best. I have as good a thoughts as I'm capable of having.
Yeah, my favorite are the people on their social media bios. They'll put opinions my own,
Yeah,
and they all seem to share the same opinions.
they
It's
do. And
like,
also, I'm always like, I mean, look, I get it. You work for a corporation or whatever. You're trying to, distance yourself, but like I assume your opinions are your own unless, otherwise specified. And weirdly, I think to your point, like when you say that, like I'm always a little bit more skeptical that your opinions are coming from someone else.
yeah.
But,
Well, so I think one way to uh, get new opinions is so stupid. I don't even need to like do a segue. This is so. We're talking. We're on a podcast. New experiences lead to
yeah,
new thoughts and opinions,
there
and
you go.
you're a new dad. Is
Yep.
your baby one yet?
He's
How old?
6 months.
6 months. Wow.
6 months, man. Just 6.5 months today. He was born on June 30th, so
Hmm.
we're in the middle here of January. He's getting there. Man, he's awesome. It's so much better. Like, okay, so I'm 42. I had, kid kind of later. I don't know, not late in life. There's a lot of guys have kids later than I did, but like I mean, I regret not starting sooner. I mean, I can tell you that. It's because I spent a lot of time. I mean, this is one new thought for sure. Is like, holy crap, I'm going to be 60 when this kid's an adult, right?
Right.
And so like that's a thought that I have had quite a lot. But honestly, the biggest thing for me is just that I always thought it would be good. I like kids. I've always liked, like I when I was in high school, I was a swimming instructor and a lifeguard and all that kind of stuff. And I always ended up teaching the toddler classes because I have like kind of a supernatural amount of patience for little
Oh
kids.
man.
And I absolutely love seeing people learn stuff and grow and like get over these sort of uncomfortable humps and all that kind of thing when they're and so like kids will come in screaming and crying for their mom and like, oh, I can't get in the pool and this is terrifying. And just to go through that first couple of days of just getting them acclimatized to the water
Mm.
and getting them to know that it's okay and then it's going to be fun. It's going to shift from like, oh, this is uncomfortable and scary to like, oh, this is actually fun. I always enjoyed that. So I always thought like being a dad would be great, right? And for the last few years, that's been increasingly something that my wife and I wanted to do. But dude, nobody even remotely prepared me for how much better it is
Oh
than
wow.
I ever would have imagined. Like, it's the coolest thing I've ever done.
That's great to hear, and also I'm happy that you guys have had a baby because one of the things that I'm sad about is when, especially when I have like really great
Yeah.
couples in my life, and I'm like, damn, they would be like, I want more people like
Yeah.
and it's like, man, like legitimately, the world would be a better place if there were more
I
people like you.
I'm like,
Yeah,
that's a thought that I didn't really have a lot until I was a dad too, right?
yeah,
Like, that's a thought that, like, didn't occur to me a whole lot. I mean, it occurred to me in the abstract, right? Like, the
mhm,
world needs more good people. It needs more, people who are, like, smart and fun and cool, and, like, those are the people who need to be, having more kids, and I don't know if that's always who ends up having kids a lot of the time, so, like, that's definitely a thought that I had, but, like, now it's a thought that I think constantly. Like, it's
yeah,
something that is all day, all the time. I look at, friends, some friends of mine, and I won't name names because 'cause they're mutual friends. They might be people you've had on the show or whatever, but, like, who talked to me recently about having kids and, like, thinking about having kids, and, they're about our age. And I was like, "Oh, great."
yeah,
Like, it's so exciting to hear that they're starting to think that way because same reason, right? I'd love to see more, more cool kids in the world, and hopefully, hopefully cool parents will produce cool kids.
Yeah, it's been, I, recently, went to a conversation between Lionel Shriver, novelist and journalist, and, Meghan Daum, the writer. I think it's, Meghan has, the Unspeakeasy, podcast. I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
And, both of them, they, they don't have kids. And I think, especially when they were, younger in life, they weren't, I don't know if they were anti-natalist. They were definitely anti-natalist for themselves. They didn't want kids.
Sure.
But as things have progressed and as they've gotten older and sort of like look around, they become a lot more pro-natalist for others. So they've been kind of like these spokespersons for please have children. And Lionel, who, I mean, she's so brilliant. If you guys haven't like read her writing, she's incredible. She wrote There's Something About Kevin, which
Yeah. Okay.
funny enough, I mean that's a book about a school shooter, and so she takes some responsibility for saying why some people didn't want to have a kid after reading this book about a school shooter.
I'm sure.
Um,
I'm
but
sure.
she gave really like two really great reasons uh, that I hadn't thought about, why you should have kids, and one of them was she was like, "To make more people to love," which I think is such a brilliant, simple way to put it,
Yeah.
and she said as a writer, she's running out of stories, and kids are new stories, so fortunately for
Yeah.
her, she has a brother who has a number of kids, and, they feed her new stories, and it's like.
There's like a great dumb reel that I saw yesterday or like a couple days ago where, a mom, in the front seat of the car is talking to her toddler in the back seat of the car, like he's 4 or 5 years old or whatever. And she says, "Oh, your mom's getting old." And he's like, "You're not old, mom." And she goes, "Yeah, I am. I'm getting wrinkles on my face." And he's like, "Oh, whatever. I've got wrinkles too." And she's like, "What are you talking about? Where do you have wrinkles?" And he goes, "My balls." And I saw that and I was like, I cannot wait for my boy to
Yeah.
start doing that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Like, I absolutely it's gonna be the most fun thing in the world to me to get to that stage. But, like, everybody says it, and, like, before you have kids, it's really hard to really understand it. And I don't think I could understand it. I just fundamentally think that, like, I did not
Yeah.
have the context for the way that everybody that I knew that loved their kids, like, actually spoke about what was so great about having kids. But, like, in the last 6 months, you know, every single really every week, but, like, every month, there has been a new phase of development, and I thought I really do think that, like, I had this idea that I wasn't really gonna be able to connect with my boy until he was old enough to talk,
Mm.
and we were able to start having conversations, and we're able to start, like, really, like, digging into that kind of, mentor-mentee relationship that I'm really looking forward to hopefully having, with my boy. But, like, I had no I like, my whole assumption around the idea of, like, him being an infant was just, like, he'll be there, we gotta feed him, we gotta do all this stuff, and we'll kinda get through all of that to the cool part, which comes a little bit later. And I was so wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I was just so completely wrong because all this stuff is cool too. Like, he's learning everything and just, man, those moments of, like, because it doesn't happen right away, but when he started to recognize me and my wife
Mm.
really specifically, right? Because babies come out, they can't see very well, like, there's all these things that sort of take a minute for them to sort of adjust to being outside, in the real world, and, like, being able to start getting that eyesight and the hearing attenuated and all of those things takes a couple of weeks. And so it wasn't for a little bit before he looked at me and you could tell there's, like, recognition, and then this just insanely bright smile comes over his face.
Mhm.
So much so that, like, you can literally watch babies, like, emotions hijack their brains to a point where they can't think straight anymore, and they have to, like, freak out and like he covers his eyes and he's like looks away and he does all this stuff. And it's just like that level of emotional intensity from a 1-month-old baby.
Oh, yeah.
It, it's indescribable. Like I literally can't explain it to somebody who hasn't
Well,
experienced.
it's like, so, my guys are older now and, they weigh like, maybe like 40 something pounds is probably like the older one. And then the younger one is probably like 35 pounds. And so I'm used to holding,
By the way, my
40.
6-month-old baby is 18 pounds.
but
So
I would love to hold 18 pounds again because it really does go by so fast.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so much of, the relationship that develop with your child, especially when they're that young, it's all physical.
yeah,
It's all like tactile. It's all
yeah.
skin to skin and
I
stuff
love
like that.
I loved watching him go from, like, sort of slightly grabbing things to now he's, like, actively, like, scratching stuff and, like, he's doing things where he's like, "Hey, here's a texture that's really interesting or new,"
Yeah.
and he'll get hyper fixated on it for, 10 minutes or something, and then he finds something else, and he's like, "Ooh, look at
Mm.
this," and, like, that's so cool, and it's so fun to watch the exploration of the world happening at that stage because it's not intellectual for him, it's all just overwhelmingly new,
Yeah.
and I haven't experienced anything like that in 40 years.
Mhm.
Like, and I don't remember experiencing that because, like, that's not really where my memory starts.
Yeah.
So,
Today,
we just
talking
gotta
about,
watch.
yeah, something to look forward to. So my my sons, they check out books from their school library,
Mhm.
and today I was explaining to them, we need to treat it with respect. We treat our own book like Daddy treats his books with respect. Uh, and especially since we don't own this book, we really have to treat it with respect.
Yeah, you
And,
gotta go even further, and
yeah,
I think that's a lesson a lot of people get backwards, right? Like, a
yeah.
lot of people treat their own stuff a lot better than they treat other people's stuff, and I honestly, I think, we need a lot more people saying, "It's kind of the reverse, like, you can do whatever you want with your stuff, I don't really care," but, like
Yes. So with that, I was explaining to my younger one who was kind of threatening to, break the book. And I said, "Well, if you break the book, you're going to have to go to your school library and tell all of the librarians there that you broke it." And he said, "I can't do that." And I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I don't have enough mouths to tell everybody that I did it. I could tell them one at a time." Dude, and I was like, writing that
Right?
down,
Yeah.
writing
That's
that one.
that's material right there, man.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Do you know,
Um,
something about, like, being an older dad, having and thinking about, where your son will be when you're 60. Uh, you look at guys like Pacino and De Niro having kids in the 80s, which I think is a little much because
it's a little far for sure,
you
you're
you
not
real
gonna be around at all
I
for
mean, you're basically saying, "I really don't wanna see my son graduate high school." Like, I really don't wanna be here for
yeah.
that. But I don't know, at that point, like, I know, I have, like, a family member who I think her grandfather ended up having a kid, like, in his 70s or something like that, and people were kinda cheering that on, and I don't know, that just
It
seems kind
freaks
of
me
like,
out. It
yeah,
freaks me out, man. Like, I mean, look, the guys, I mean, maybe the other example you brought up is not the De Niro example, but, like, Pacino's, like, late 70s, 80, De Niro's about the same age, I think into his
yeah.
80s at this point, maybe. I think so. And, having kids that late I don't think it's a good thing from that standpoint because they're really not gonna be much around, although they may not have been around anyway, given
Right.
what they did and who they were and all that
Mhm.
kinda stuff. But at least they have, you know, kind of an unlimited amount of money to throw at that problem,
Yeah, there's
right?
no poor 80-year-olds, impregnating, like,
Yeah.
30-year-old chicks and all.
So that's kinda I mean, it's not exactly a silver lining because I don't really think that that's a substitute
Mhm.
for being there, right? Um, but all things considered, it's better than a random 80-year-old having a kid and having no money. So, like I'm not at least worried that their kids are going to starve or like they're going to die and then suddenly like nobody's going to be around. They're obviously going to, plan for all of that. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like I think about like talking about all the things that I feel differently about, now that I've had kids. One is, simply my own health, right? Like
Right.
I spent a lot of my life, kind of burning the candle on both ends and trying to, I don't sleep a lot. I still don't sleep a lot. That was actually the funnier thing when I had Wayne is like everybody was like, "Oh, are you getting any sleep?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I didn't sleep before." So, like, this is perfectly fine for me, and it legitimately is. Like, I wake up more than Wayne does, especially now. Like,
Oh, we
early
got
on, it was
yeah.
it was about on par, and we would wake up about the same time. Now I'm still waking up more than he wakes up anyway, and so, I actually just take advantage of that, kind of fact about myself to go prep bottles and things like that before he wakes up and starts crying, which is kind of a blessing in some ways. But anyway, it's not that great, right? Like not sleeping a lot is not ideal. I'm not advocating this as like a health thing. I'm just saying like this is just kind of how I am. But it's made me rethink some of that stuff, right? Like it's made me rethink like how much do I push myself in my career or in my, like just other projects and things like that. Like what's more important to me, has never been until now, it's never really been like, hey, you should probably go see the cardiologist like, more than once every couple years, right?
Mhm.
Like you should, if there's something that's actually wrong with you, because part of the thing for me, I've had this conversation with doctors, not, you know, like more recently, is like I'm such a low neuroticism person in general, and I don't really experience any kind of anxiety, and so what happens that's a downside to that is that I just kind of ignore stuff, right? Like, if something is a minor problem or if
Right.
it doesn't really affect my quality of life at all, I'll just be like, "Ah, whatever, who cares?" Whereas a lot of other people go, "Oh, man, that's a spot on my arm that I've never seen before. I better go to the dermatologist and look at that." And now I'm kinda like, well, I don't really feel anything about it. Like the spot on my arm is whatever it is. It doesn't mean anything to me. But now my intellectual side goes, yeah, but you should go to a dermatologist because you don't want to die at 55 of melanoma.
Yeah.
And so, like, because then you'll leave your boy behind. And I never had that thought before until now. Like, I never had a thing that was like, well, if this turns out to be a problem, it was always like, well, I'll just deal with it then. And now I'm starting to get a lot more proactive about stuff like that. 'Cause I have something that's like a distant future goal that wasn't like a 10-year goal or a 5-year goal, but like now it's a 40-year goal, you know?
Right.
And that's a
Yeah.
very different way of looking at my own life.
Yeah, on the health side, you're bringing up, specifically like something like a melanoma or whatnot. Like if you're a single person, there are parts of your body that you're just not inspecting because,
You
like
can't.
how often are you looking at your what's on your back,
That's kinda where this all started for me because it was a
Yeah.
foot thing. I was like, "I can't see the bottom of my foot." So I just assume whatever it is like a callus. And then
Mhm.
you just go, "Okay, don't care." 'Cause it's normal, you know? But I'm not looking at it, and I'm not looking at it every day, and then suddenly, like, once like, hypothetically or whatever, like, you're not looking at something on your back or you're like, hard to view areas because you can't see on the back of your head or whatever, and then you go to a doctor and they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's not what you thought it was."
Mm.
Well, it never occurred to me to care until now, right? Like all
Yeah.
that stuff, like,
What
now I'm
what'd you
actually
what'd you
like,
have
"Hey,
going on? What'd you have going on the foot?
nothing major, just some, like, more, like,
A
cyst
testicle? An extra
type
testicle
things."
growing?
No Cronenberg's, like, crawling out of my skin anywhere, but no, just, like, it wasn't a callus, and it was
Right.
just like, "Oh, okay, well, I have to medicate it." It's not something that you can just deal with by, like, changing your shoes or whatever, which is what I thought I was gonna be able to do, right?
Mhm.
But little stuff like that just never even occurred to me before,
Yeah.
you know? And now I'm like, I'm not worried about it, I'm not anxious about it because I still don't have any of the kind of anxiety or whatever, but it's more of an intellectual thing for me now where I'm just like, "Okay, well, I know I wanna be here for Wayne when he's, graduated high school and everything, but also I'd like to be around for a while after that," like, I don't wanna just go like, "Oh, you're 20, I'm gonna kick it," and
Yeah.
also I kinda wanna live forever anyway, but, like
Well, you are a very active person too. I mean, in
sure,
addition to not sleeping, like you have so many projects going on,
yeah,
and the reality is like, you know, if you like, I know from example, I think it was the beginning of last year. I was having such a great beginning of the year, January and February, and then I went back to jujitsu and I rolled with a guy who cranked a foothold and fucked my ankle up so bad that I was limping around for, a
yeah,
couple of weeks. And during those couple of weeks, I sank into a depression
wow,
based on the physical pain that I was dealing with and just not being able
and then
to be
not doing
active.
the
Yeah.
regular
So
physical activity,
it was such a direct impact of
yeah.
if my body's fucked up, it's going to fuck me up mentally.
Yeah. Man,
And
I think about that a lot, that kind of stuff a lot too, because you do, like, you're like, having your routine get kinda blasted by an injury or something like that can, definitely take a toll for sure. But, like, when you're thinking about being really forward-looking about being in your, later 40s or 50s or, like, early 60s or whatever, when your kid is coming into his most active, most physically fit peak time in life, like 18 to 30, like that whole territory of being like really kind of at his physical peak. I'm going to be, if I don't if I don't pay attention, if I don't take care of myself, I'm going to be in a position where I can't keep up at all, right?
yeah.
And I keep thinking about things that, I used to do when I was a kid. We did a lot of high adventure backpacking and camping, extended canoe trips. We did like, 2 week like Boundary Waters trip and, out in the middle of nowhere with a bunch of dudes like canoeing for
Wow.
days, no civilization of any kind, right? And whitewater rafting or, like any like we did my wife and I even maybe about 10 years ago did a several mile, cave, like, there was a lava tube outside of Portland, outside of in Washington, where we went on a hike through a lava tube, that was pretty challenging because there's a lot of, like, rocks and it's, no good terrain, it's pitch black the whole time, and it's all this stuff is really
Sounds like a
interesting.
nightmare. That's my
My
nightmare. Oh my
I
god.
mean Y yeah, well, I mean, I don't wanna get into it that much, but,
Yeah.
like, my wife did freak out sort of when we got to the end because we got to the end of this tunnel, and it was the only way to climb up is if you were able to basically rope climb a 12-foot, like, sheer cliff, and
Mhm.
we really couldn't do that, and we got to a point where our, like, headlamps were starting to fail, you know?
Oh, dude.
And so we were, like, 2 miles in, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, "Okay, I've got more batteries, like, we've got like, we can do this, like, we can make it back or whatever," but, like, it definitely freaked her out by the time we got to the end of that thing because we had to turn around and go back the whole way back because we didn't know that it ended that way. We thought it ended with, because there was a tunnel entrance kind of, like, very close to where we ended up, but not close enough, and,
Mhm. Yeah, and you wanna be able to do that. You wanna be able
but I
to
wanna
do
be
that
able to do
for as
that
long as
stuff
you
with
can.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I wanna be able to do that with my kid, right? Like, last year, 2 years ago, we were in Estes Park, Colorado, and we went to, drive through the Rockies, and we did some, nice little hikes to go see waterfalls and stuff like that. I'm not gonna be able to do that at 55 or 60 or 65 or whatever, unless I'm paying a lot more attention now to, like, how I'm able to maintain, my just physical health,
Yeah.
right? And, it's really fascinating because stuff like that just completely radically changed my perspective on even just myself, you know? And of course, it changes my perspective on the rest of the world too, and, like, how urgent it is that we, fix some problems that are, that have been growing for decades and all that kinda stuff, and It's an interesting proposition because it not only shifted my sense of my own career a little bit, but it shifted it changed the intensity that I feel of, like, the urgency of fixing some things,
Yep.
you know?
So one thing I want to say about being able to you know hike and do stuff like that. When my wife and I got married, it'll be 8 years in August. We went for our honeymoon. We went to France and we went to Iceland,
Nice.
which was Iceland was one of my favorite places. And we met
Yeah.
a couple there, an older couple. They're probably in their 70s, and their motto was "Cover the earth before the earth covers you." Means just go everywhere you can while you can.
Yeah.
And obviously taking care of yourself is the way
Yeah.
is the way
I
to
mean,
do
how
it.
do you do that if you're, bound to a wheelchair, or if you can't move, you
Yeah,
know?
like, I'm not like, I know there are a lot of guys in their 40s who are on, like, testosterone replacement and all
Yeah,
that.
and I
I'm not there, but when I need to be there, you're
yeah,
damn right I'm gonna fucking be I'm gonna be there,
yeah.
like,
I haven't really given that any thought,
I'm
but
gonna take the
but I'm
juice
with
for
you.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, whatever kinda not whatever it takes, because I don't wanna be, whatever whatever that
Brian Johnson?
Bryan Johnson, yeah, whatever that I don't wanna be that guy.
Dude, yeah, did you know that
Like, I
he
wanna be
yeah, yeah.
immortal, but I don't wanna get it that way.
I
Like
think well, I think someone had pointed it out, which was so great. They took a picture of Brian Johnson, who takes like hundreds of fucking supplements a day. The
way
guy
too
he monitors his nighttime erections. He was measuring his son's erections.
Yep, I heard that, and I
I
was like,
guess,
I'm very out. I was already a little bit out. Now
yeah.
I'm entirely out.
So somebody had compared him to 60 some odd year old Anthony Kiedis, who was a junkie for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You
Oh,
look
yeah,
at
okay,
Anthony
I guess.
Kiedis.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
looks amazing, and he's like 60 something. Didn't do any of that shit. You look
Look,
at this guy Brian Johnson. He looks like Data from fucking Star Trek. His
he does.
skin is
He's
just like see
pallid and
through.
weird, and,
Weird.
like, it's all like, there's something just completely inhuman about the whole thing, and I don't like it at all. Dude, I a long time ago, maybe approaching 20 years ago now, I heard 2 stories simultaneously in the media of, like, at the time, the oldest man in the world, right? And it was right after they died, and so there were just, like, posthumous interviews and obituaries and all this kinda stuff. And the first one that I heard was a guy some Chinese guy who, when they did the interview with him, they, of course they asked, like, "What's your secret? You've lived to 100 and," they claimed he was 110 or 112 years old or something crazy, you know? And he go, "What's your secret?" And he goes, "Well,
Lying.
I don't," yeah, probably, right. Or just, not having good birth records from 100 years ago,
Yeah.
but whatever. Okay, fine. I'll take it on credit that he's 110 or what have you. But in any case, he was old, right? And so they go, "What's your secret?" He goes, "Oh, well, I just pure clean living. I don't drink. I've been married to the same woman. I've only, ever been with that one woman. I do calisthenics every day. I work out every day. I just drink water. I never drink anything else. I'm a vegetarian. Like everything I just do the purest, cleanest thing that I can do, right? That's the secret." And then, like, literally a week later, some Scottish guy dies who's like 107, and it's the oldest man in the world again, right? And so we're doing the obituary thing again. We're doing the thing where it's like, "What's your secret?" He's like, "Well, he was an RAF pilot in World War I,"
Mhm.
right? And he's like, "Man, I drank and slept my way through Europe. I had the greatest time. I smoked a cigar every single day. I have like a bottle of whiskey every day. You know, I had the best life. I just lived it up, and I
Yep.
had the best time imaginable." And that was his secret. And the only thing that I could take away from that is just find purpose and meaning within yourself, enjoy your life, and don't worry about it, because,
Yeah.
like, half of it's just genetics, and I think the other half, and it's actually a lot more than half, is just genetics, if we're being honest. But, like, whatever's left is just, do you wanna still be alive?
Yeah.
Are you enjoying your life? Do you wanna keep going or not? You
Mhm.
know? 'Cause I've seen this with elderly family members, and I've seen it like, even my own grandma, who died at, just, 3 years ago, I think now. She was 92, I believe, when she died, and she we so during COVID, she kept asking, we get on video calls, and she was kinda getting to, like, sundowner syndrome and all these kinds of things where she's really not there for most of the day, but she has moments, like, she has pockets of lucidity, right? And she kept asking, we get on video calls with my grandma during COVID and lockdowns and everything, and she goes like, "When are you guys gonna come visit me?" She's in Nebraska, my at least my family from my dad, through me and my brother, nowhere near her anymore, right?
Right.
And so we're like, well, we can't really get there because of COVID and the lockdowns and planes and blah blah blah. Like it's going to be really tough for us to get there. And firstly, I always thought it was funny because you're like, bah, whatever, who cares? Like I don't care about COVID, just come, right? So I always loved that about my grandma to begin with. But about a year and a half later, 2022 or so, she's still asking, why, like, when can you guys all come to visit? So we all plan to come visit at Thanksgiving. Um, and we all go to Omaha where she's living with my aunt. And, she dies like 3 months later.
Mm.
And I legitimately and I don't feel bad about that. Like, my grandma had a really excellent life and she lived a really long time. She was, being lovingly taken care of by my aunts and, she had stack of grandkids. Like, it was all great and great grandkids and great great grandkids, right? Tons. And so I'm not like upset about that. But I think what was really interesting about it was she was very clearly waiting
Yeah, yeah.
for everybody to come see her. And then just for her to be able to have that peace of mind to go, okay, you know, all my all my children are okay, all my immediate grandchildren are doing well. All of the great grandchildren seem to be, prospering. Everybody's good. Everybody saw me. It's time, right?
Yeah.
That sticks with me, like that idea of like you kind of get to a point where you can almost make a choice, right? Like it's almost like you can keep hanging on or you can let go. And I think the reason that people let go kind of early sometimes is they just don't have a lot going on. They just don't have a lot to live for.
Yeah.
And of course, you can see that in all the stats of like, husband dies and then wife dies shortly later, shortly thereafter, or, the other way around, right? Like there's quite a lot of cases where somebody's partner dies as an elderly person and you kind of know like they don't have much time left. And you got to wonder like that has nothing to do with the diet or exercise or food or, or genetics or anything. It just has to do with their reason for living is gone, right?
Yeah, that reminds me of the, God, that awful, scenario of, Gene Hackman and his wife.
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
man.
That's wild,
And I think it was, I think the ruling was the wife had passed away, and then
I think she died
and
first, and then he
Gene
didn't have a
had.
caretaker,
Yeah,
and he had, dementia and Alzheimer's or whatever, you know, because he was 90 what was he, 94 or something?
something like that,
He's
yeah,
very old. But, yeah, that's such a tragic way to go,
yeah.
And look, not to, like, stick on this, like, morose celebrity death
No, it's
realm, like
everybody's checking into the episode right now.
yeah,
That's
obviously,
all they wanna hear.
everybody wants to be here for the death conversation, but look, I thought that was horrifying, but, like, as a new dad also, when, it came out that Rob Reiner's
Mm,
son was probably most likely the one who murdered them, you know? Like, that too was, like, another thing where I'm like, "Well, I gotta whatever I can do to, like, make sure that my son and I are really in good shape." Like, not that I think that that's, like, particularly likely, but I can't imagine a worse feeling than to have your son turn on you to that degree, And look, the guy's got issues and he's on drugs, and who knows what the hell happened, like, behind the scenes or blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I don't wanna get into that. But, like, I wanna make sure that I have a good relationship with my kid because I wanna be 90 and get a hug from a guy that I raised, right? Like, that's what I want. I don't want this, like, we've all split up and gone our separate ways. Like, I don't know, man. It's really interesting. And part of my perspective has changed too a little bit because my mother-in-law lives with us, and so we have a multi-generational household now. And it's kind of awesome, actually.
Does she have like her own wing?
Yeah. Yeah. When we left our house in Atlanta and we moved outside to the country, part of our reason for doing that and our requirement for doing that was that she have kind of her own suite in our house. So she has basically the whole basement. I have 2 rooms in the basement. She has everything else. And she has her own kitchen, her own living room, her own, kind of whole suite with like a dressing room and bathroom, the whole
She
thing.
could bring dudes back home.
You could totally bring dudes back there. It would be totally fine. I would never know. She has her own garage, her own entrance. It's all kind of separate in that sense. And that's wonderful. And it's not lost on me how cool that is. And, I really have a lot of appreciation that we've gotten ourselves into a place where we can afford that and whatnot. That's pretty cool. But, she comes up and hangs out with Wayne so that, my wife can work and I can work, and so we can do things. And that's just kind of how it was for human history for the vast majority of our species' existence, right? Like it was, younger parents still have to go out and accomplish things, right? Like we still actually have to be the ones to go out and do the work to bring the income back to support the family. But what's great is you can kind of put a retiree on, like here's how we take care of our kids actually is grandma helps.
Yeah.
And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, my wife.
And I just think all that has kind of gone away with the kind of antinatalist stuff too, like
yeah.
like you should be a boomer chasing like your dream at 71 by flying around the world and going on cruises every week. And I'm like, well, honestly, I feel like when I get to be that age, like I don't really want to go on cruises all the time. I want to hang out with people I like and to kind of, be with the people that matter to me.
Well, yeah, I
So,
mean, ultimately, it's those relationships that will give you the most. I don't know, the most meaning, the most enjoyment, all that. My in-laws,
yeah.
my father-in-law retired. It was last year or the year before, and then my mother-in-law just retired. So she's able to pull a lot of hanging with the kids, and they've been great. I mean, they one thing that I would say if anybody who's in a marriage if you want to make it work, and I am maybe I'm at the I'm this what helps my marriage is you should enjoy dating your wife.
Yeah.
You should look for opportunities where you can go out to dinner, go see a movie, go see a play, have an overnight, somewhere. And the reality is, you're able to do that if you have loved ones and
Yeah.
like your in-laws who are able to take care of you.
I mean, that's probably the hardest thing. I mean, it's certainly one of the harder things right now is that with so much going on, we don't have a lot of time to like just go off by ourselves. We'll take the baby, if we have to go anywhere, like we always take him. And I don't like that's not bad, right? Like that's great. But you're absolutely right. I mean, it's really important to have time carved out for you and carved out for you as a couple as well. And yeah, having grandma and by the way, I mean, a lot of times, I mean, this is just the reality of being, middle-aged or whatever at this point. But like, you know, grandma takes our boy on she likes watching football. Neither my wife or I care at all about pro sports. So we will give Wayne to her, his grandma for basically all day on Sunday from like noon to 5 or whatever. She gets him and she's desperately trying to turn him into a football fan.
Mhm.
Starting young. Fine with me. I don't really care. Like you can like whatever you like. But the nice thing about that is that basically it's like that's our time to do now it's not thrilling, but it's like that's our time to get everything we need to get done
Right.
without worrying about anything else. So it's when we go run errands, it's when we go do, like Like, we go to Home Depot, we like if we have to, like, fix something, if we have to repaint something, like, we have to do anything around the house, like, that's our moment to do that, and I do wonder sometimes, like, without that intergenerational thing, you've gotta pay a babysitter or
Right.
something if you ever wanted to do anything like that, and that is pretty prohibitive for a lot of people. So, I think that the weird consequence of kind of saying, you know, it doesn't really matter. Like, you should split off from your extended family and kinda go over and look, I'm a poster boy for all this, right? Like, I graduated high school, graduated college, I moved to New York City, and then I moved to Los Angeles, and my parents moved to Madison, Wisconsin, and then Portland, and my brother moved to New York, and we're all over the place,
Yeah.
and, so we're about as far away from each other as you could possibly be, and, I mean, at least within North America, right? Well, I suppose within the continental United States, we could be in Alaska or something, but, I don't know, like, I kinda feel like that's a mistake to some degree at this point, right?
Mm.
Now, obviously, like, we're kinda committed to it, like, I can't convince my brother to move down here,
Yeah, we've
and I can't really convince
yeah,
my parents to leave the house that they love to move over here either, but, like,
to get a
it'd be
whole,
nice.
to get a Malone, compound going.
Well, that's what you need
Yeah.
sometimes. But that's radically different from how both my parents grew up, right? I went to the same high school that my grandfather went to, my dad went to.
Oh, wow.
And so all my uncles and my cousins never really left, and they all stayed close to where my grandma lives. And thus they were also close to their uncles and great uncles and all the extended family and all that kind of stuff. And look, I mean, I'm not the biggest I'm not the most connected to my extended family. Like, I'm not saying you gotta be or anything, but there's some benefits for sure to kinda having I think what it is like you think back to when Hillary Clinton wrote that, like, it takes a village. Well, somebody ghost wrote for Hillary Clinton, "It takes a village," and everybody got mad at her. And I'm with them on the sense of, like, she was kinda talking about having government take care of kids, right?
Uh,
Um, but she's not wrong in the sense that it actually does take a lot of people, or it should, in a lot of ways, take a lot of people to raise a kid well, right? You need a lot of different role models, you need a lot of different mentors, you need those times where you can, as parents, you can take a break, right? And I think it's better for that village to be people that you know and trust and care about than necessarily people who, you found on Nextdoor or, Facebook Marketplace or like whatever
oh,
where the hell
oh,
you find
to
babysitters now,
to
right?
totally. We know someone who has a newborn and, uh, well, the baby's a few months old now, and, she needs to get back to work, and she went through this whole process of interviewing a babysitter.
Yeah.
And, the babysitter, didn't show up one week because she said she had a fever, and then the fever continued for, like, another week, and it's like, "Oh, something's off here." And it's yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not a good place to be where you turn around and you don't have that,
Yeah.
support system there, you know?
That's the thing. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, like, everybody has to build those things kind of themselves. And again, I'm not some, like, you know, trad guy or whatever trying to say that, like, everybody should never leave the within 10 miles of wherever they were born or what. I mean, like, there's all kinds of reasons that you should, go out and kind of do what you need to do to maximize your own success in life, right? Which is kinda what I did, right? Like, there were a lot of things I wanted to do in media and creative work and all that kinda stuff that, frankly, Lincoln, Nebraska was just never going to be a place for. It would just That's just not where I was gonna make a living as a filmmaker or as any kind of a creator.
Well, with
Um
that, I wanna talk to you about, there was, an article that came out in Compact magazine by this guy, Jacob Savage, who was basically saying what I guess our circle has been, openly saying for a while now, and it had to do with basically straight white men being shafted in so many
Oh, yeah,
areas, whether
yeah.
academia, entertainment, and all that.
Yeah.
And I read the article. I enjoyed the article, and then something happened where I started watching TV again, or at least I started streaming shows again.
You start paying attention to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so a few of the shows that I've watched that I've really enjoyed have been Pluribus by Vince Gilligan,
Yep. Which I
Severance.
haven't watched yet, by the
Yeah,
way, and really looking forward to. Everybody
yeah,
says it's great.
yeah.
So
So Pluribus, Severance,
yep.
which is now my favorite show. Can't wait for the next season, and
Insane show. Great.
the Chair Company on HBO.
Which I haven't
Which
watched at all.
so here are three shows that I
The Chair
really
Company's
like.
with Tim Robinson, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, with
Yeah.
Tim Robinson.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I really like these shows, and I'm watching them, and I'm thinking about this article, and I'm thinking, my God, who are the guys running these shows? They're all straight white dudes, as far as I know. I mean, maybe some of them aren't straight, but they're all white dudes who have just made three shows that I'm really enjoying. And I think back and I'm like, oh my God, how many great shows were not made because the guy happened to be a white guy
Yeah.
and Hollywood wasn't doing that?
Dude,
How many great movies haven't been made because, sorry, you're a white dude, we're not doing that.
I mean,
I'm like,
I don't
what a
remember
loss. What a
I don't
fucking
remember if
loss.
you and I talked about this before. I don't think we did, and I can't be very specific about it because it's not my story and there's some NDAs involved and things like that. But I have a buddy who I've worked with before as a producer who had the rights to do a documentary about a fairly famous musician, not a fairly famous musician, a very famous musician,
Mhm.
who had died, about 15 years ago now. Maybe a little bit, maybe like more like 20 years ago now. And he had connected with the family of that musician. Musician's black. He is not black. The producer's not black. And they had seen another piece that he had done. They really liked it. So they wanted him to direct the documentary about this musician's life. And they gave him the rights to it. And he went to start going to pitch this to everywhere. He went to HBO and Hulu and Netflix and Paramount and Fox. And like he went around, he shopped it around, right? Like he went to Searchlight, and everybody was like, they wanted two things. First of all, their conditions were you can't direct it because you're white and male. Well, particularly because you're white in this case, but I think the male thing also factored in. And also we want to change the narrative that you have in mind to include a whole lot more racial political activism, which wasn't really something that the musician in question, not that he didn't care about it, but it wasn't really like a major staple. Like it wouldn't have been organic to the documentary, right? Like you wouldn't have gotten that from interviews if you were just asking about his life, right?
Mm.
Not in the way that they wanted to do, right? They wanted a very like George. It was like right in the aftermath of George Floyd and all that kind of stuff, right? And so this is a black family of a black musician that chose this director and producer. And then it was the studios that went, no, I'm sorry, black family. You can't make a choice for yourself. We would like to make that choice for you and make sure that it aligns to the racial component
Right.
of whatever. And like, that's not the only story that I've got multiple friends now who've told me kind of similar stories over the years with the entertainment industry.
I,
And
I
I
had
could
a
see that writing on the wall in 2010, man. Like
oh
it was
yeah,
not hard to see.
I had a friend of mine who I was at We the Internet at the time, and he asked me if I wanted to write on an animated show that he was putting together. It was already funded and all that. He was just putting together the writers' room, and I wish I could have done it, but I was in working on the East Coast, and it was
Yeah.
in
I have a
California.
suspicion I know who
Well,
you're talking about, by the
yeah,
way. But yeah.
and so I told him, I couldn't do it. And he was telling me that he was able to basically staff this show with writers with insane credits and do it for cheap. Why? Because they were all white dudes and all the other writers' rooms had enough white dudes.
Was
So
this
he was able to, well,
was
without
this
saying,
out of curiosity, was this a show for Netflix?
I have no clue. No
Is it
clue.
on Netflix?
I don't know what
Alright.
where the show runs,
I
but
have a suspicion. We'll have to talk
yeah.
about it after the fact because I know
But
I
but
think I
but it's a
would guess
but it's a yeah,
maybe.
it's a thing where, again, I start, thinking about all of my favorite shows, and I'm like,
Yeah,
"Okay, let me just look at HBO, my favorite shows on HBO: The
yeah,
Sopranos, The Wire,
yeah,
Larry Sanders Show, Deadwood." Oh, a lot of white dudes.
yeah.
A
Well,
lot of white dudes.
and it's a lot of, like, David Simon, Taylor Sheridan, like, there's a lot of that kinda stuff that, like, works, and, like, that's not to say I mean, Shonda Rhimes has done a bunch of, good shows, like, there are a lot of shows out there that, you know, aren't written or directed or whatever. Like, I don't wanna care about that, right?
Right.
Like, I wanna get to a world as quickly as humanly possible, and honestly, I should say it this way, I wanna go back to a world because the world of the late '90s and early 2000s was that world for me, like, where
Mhm.
nobody talked about it, nobody cared, and if you go back and watch almost anything from that era, they're organically very diverse, like,
Yeah.
racially and, gender diversity. I watched I like to have stuff playing on in the back I don't know why I don't have to be ashamed of this. I watched Bedazzled yesterday
Oh, okay.
with Brendan Fraser
Been a while.
and
That's
Elizabeth
quite
Hurley. It's been a
that's a
while.
deep cut, a deep, Brendan
Uh,
Fraser cut.
did you know Harold Ramis wrote the script for that version of that
No,
movie?
I didn't
I
know.
didn't realize that until
The great
yesterday.
Harold Ramis, yeah.
Really enjoyed it, but I was watching it and look, like, there's some elements of it that are caricature, right? Because that's kind of the nature of the movie, right? The nature of the film is and the story is that Brendan Fraser meets the devil, the actual devil, and she grants him a series of wishes, and he wants to try to make his life better, and so each time she does the monkey's paw kind of be careful what you wish for devil stuff, right? So, he wishes to be rich and powerful, and she makes him a Colombian drug lord. So, of course, the next shot is Brendan Fraser with, like, a fake nose that's, like, kind of a Latino, kinda larger Colombian nose and a black beard, and he's kinda caricatured up, right? And then there's another one later where he turns out to be gay, and so Toby Huss plays his, like, gay lover, and Toby is so over the top with his, like, lispy gayness in it, right? And you would never do that exactly today because it's just too much of, like, the stereotypical gay, you know but on the other hand, you've got movies like Independence Day, where Harvey Fierstein is just literally playing himself, like, there's just nothing not Harvey Fierstein about that character in Independence Day. But my point is this, like, there are, his core group of friends, they're his office mates who don't really like him, but includes, Toby Huss, and Orlando Jones. And there was nothing in there, and all of those guys show up in every one of the other vignettes, right? Every time he makes a wish and becomes a different person, they also become, related to him, but in that new context, right? So those guys then become like his lieutenants as he's a Colombian drug lord, or then they become, party goers at his, fancy gala or whatever that he's attending. And so one of the things I always find fascinating about this is like I grew up with that. You and I grew up with this where you would see a very diverse range of people, especially any time a movie was set in like a modern city, right? And it was not commented on. Like it was just this is a normal part of life is that you are around people of different ethnicities, racial makeups, different backgrounds, different sexualities. It was just never that somebody was like throwing it as a political message, like critical drinkers like the message thing all the time. Like it was never that. It was just like he just inhabits a world and that world includes different people in it. And so, like, organically and, people have made this meme before too, which is like Disney like, unironically, Disney did diversity a hell of a lot better before they were trying to do diversity
Yeah.
than
That's
they
a good
do
way
it
to put it.
now, right? Like, if you go back and look at, The Princess and the Frog or, Pocahontas or, almost anything that they did for years and years and years, Aladdin even, like, they're doing interesting stories from all over the world. Mulan, right? They're doing all these stories, and they're honestly, they're better than most of the stories that they have now, and they still fit into all of their sort of their box checking of all this stuff. I just find it crazy that, like, we've gone away from that, from like a fairly colorblind approach to things, to this hyper fixated, everything must be, we must check all the boxes of intersectional, racial feminism stuff. You know, it's
Right
super
on.
weird.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's probably cost us an awfully large number of really high quality things as a result.
Well, for the future of humanity and for the future of our children, let's change it.
Yeah.
And we'll move forward.
Yeah.
Guys, you've been listening to a conversation between me, Lou Perez, and my friend, Sean Malone. Sean, where can people find your stuff?
Well, the new stuff, you can always go to SeanWMalone.com to find like my kind of overall works and stuff. But I've been the creative director for a new organization called Lexandria, which is a platform that we're building for educators, both public school teachers, private school teachers, homeschoolers, whatever, that sort of collects like the Western canon and is trying to bring back, an education that really is more of a classics education. And so I'm putting a lot of effort into that right now. So you can find that at lexandria.org, or if you actually want to sign up, learn.lexandria.org. And, if you're a homeschooling parent or whatever, or a teacher, I'd love for you to check it out. We've got a lot of resources there already. And I've got a list of like 600 things to bring onto the site that we're going to be
Awesome.
doing in the next year or so. So it's pretty exciting.
Great.